All right, so we want to check in with our chief meteorologist, Derek Beasley. He is analyzing all the data as it comes in. He's a very, very busy guy tonight, but we want to bring him on in to kind of talk about where things stand right now. We're looking at some of these wind gusts. So already in Fort Myers,
28.
I noticed it today driving to work. The car was kind of shifting. And so can you impress upon people why, I can drive in 40-mile-an-hour winds over the bridge? Because physically there's not a barrier that blocks you.
And we should just mention, I'm sorry, I got to mention, I keep running these little, this is your last chance, y'all. Lee County is going to suspend, while we're talking about winds, emergency operations at 40 miles an hour.
Well, that makes sense. Okay. Look at Key West, up to 63. Marathon, it looks like 66 there. Punta Gorda up to 31. So we were getting some 20 and 30-mile-an-hour winds earlier today. Not tropical storm force yet, but that's going to be changing quickly later tonight. As we're starting to see those sustained tropical storm force winds get a little bit closer here to southwest Florida. So we're going to gradually see those winds ramping up in intensity through the night, and then the hurricane force wind should arrive earlier in Collier County tomorrow morning and then gradually spread northward and intensify throughout the day, especially once the eye gets a little bit closer. Now, here's the forecast wind gusts, and it kind of gives you just a general idea of how this is going to just kind of ramp up throughout the day. You can see Fort Myers in the morning. We'll have tropical storm force winds potentially sustained, certainly in some gusts. Then as we go through the morning hours, look at Naples, wind gusts over hurricane force. So I do expect Naples, Golden Gate, other areas of Collier County, even Immokalee are likely going to see hurricane force winds starting in the morning tomorrow. And then pretty much look at this. You're going to have, at least in gusts, you're going to have hurricane force winds 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Then at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's where you're going to really see the nasty hurricane force winds with the eye as it gets closer to the coast. So well into the triple digits here, 127 miles an hour there. So look, there's Sunday at 6 o'clock. We're still dealing with
nuts, man.
That's why I said that this is going to be a long duration event where we're going to basically have strong tropical storm force winds for a while. And then we're also going to have hurricane force winds for a long time as well. So we're going to be going with a long duration event where we're going to have strong tropical storm force winds starting tonight. We're already starting to see that in some spots. And then that's going to gradually ramp up through the night. And then as we go throughout the day tomorrow, we're going to have pretty much a 5 to 7 hour event of hurricane force winds. That's why we're stressing the damage that potentially could occur, the wind damage as a result of these winds being strong for one, and then for going for so long. So this is that kind of situation where we're also going to have that huge storm surge. That's also going to be another factor we've got to take into account. So the storm surge is going to be a big issue. We've got a threat for isolated tornadoes overnight tonight. Thankfully, we haven't had any tornado warnings in the past hour or two. But we do expect that tornado threat again to pick up again overnight tonight. I think it'll shift more over towards the East Coast as we get into tomorrow. And then for tomorrow afternoon, that's where we're going to really see some of those bigger winds across the region. So you can see these wave heights here. This is the big story. As this approaches the coast of southwest Florida, this is where you're going to start to get that storm surge. So all of this is on the east side of the storm as it's moving northward. We always talk about that right side of the storm. The right side is where you get that high water. We're going to get storm surge all across all of southwest Florida, but the big storm surge is going to be on the right side of that center as it begins moving inland. So what we're going to be looking at is that wave action and that storm surge gradually lifting towards the coast, affecting Collier County, and then kind of sloshing its way northward up into Lee County. On top of that, we're going to have winds blowing onshore, particularly when the storm begins lifting northward. So we're going to start off with east winds. And then when the eye goes by, or the center of circulation goes by, and then starts lifting north of southwest Florida, we're going to get winds out of the west, so coming in off the Gulf, and that's going to drive even more water up into some of these areas. So we're going to have big-time problems with extreme wind, also with water, in the form of water falling out of the sky, with heavy rainfall totals, 10 to 20 inches in some areas. And we're also going to have that big-time storm surge to deal with as well. So like Patrick was mentioning earlier, it's this huge octopus with all these tentacles that we're going to have to deal with. I did like that. I did like that, Patrick. I did like that analogy. I think that's a really good way of describing it. So here are the rainfall totals, and this is just a computer model. It doesn't necessarily mean that what you see here is what's going to occur, but anywhere from 8 to 10 inches, some spots 15. Some spots up to 20. Not everybody will see 15 to 20 inches. It depends on where these heavier rain bands set up. We've already seen one flash flood warning in effect for Lee County, the extreme southern ports of Lee County around Bonita Springs. We've had a rain band that's kind of been hanging out in the area for the past hour or two. You can see that rain band there. It looks like it's not quite as well defined as it was, but you can see this very long and thick rain band, all this rain basically that continues from the East Coast all the way back towards the West Coast. And this is where we're going to be dealing with that potential for tornadoes, too, with some of these bands that are going to be coming across the state. Now, it looks like the wind shear is a little more favorable for tornadoes over on the East Coast there, with the winds a little bit more out of the southeast and then turning more out of the east as you go in the upper parts of the atmosphere. So we're going to be looking at more of these tornado warnings developing here overnight tonight. Although typically with these tropical storms and hurricanes, we get most of the tornado warnings, it seems, or at least the tornado potential, when we have more of the heating during the afternoon. So when we start to get, especially if we get some breaks in the clouds here for tomorrow, in between some of those rain bands, we could very well see a few more tornado warnings in some of those areas as the instability will ramp up. So here's that flash flood warning I was talking about, and you can clearly see where it is, including Bonita Springs, and that goes until 2 o'clock in the morning. That's as a result of the rain that has fallen, 1 to 3 to 4 inches of rainfall, and then we're going to be seeing additional rainfall totals on top of that. So just because this expires at 2 a.m. does not mean that the entire event is over with as far as rainfall is concerned, because we've got more of this on the way. There's the eye there, and we had this double eye wall structure earlier. Let me show that to you. You can see how there was the eye there, the smaller eye, and then this bigger one that's around it. We call that concentric eye walls. And what happens is these storms, when they go through these internal structural changes, if you will, the internals of the storm start to change, and the old eye will dissipate, and then a new one will form and begin to contract. And what we're seeing here is likely a new eye beginning to develop, and we'll see this contract. And we've actually seen the pressures drop a little bit this evening. They've steadied off, or they've leveled off, but the winds have come back up. They were 125, went down to 120, now back up to 125. We're anticipating some strengthening, though, as this storm system begins lifting off towards the north. So as this thing gets a little bit closer to the coast of southwest Florida, that's where we're expecting that wind to gradually start ramping up across the area. So as you can see, the storm is large. We're going to be dealing with a prolonged period of hurricane-force winds across the region with, I would say, again, 3 to 5 to 7 hours of hurricane-force winds, really depending on your location. I actually think it's going to be more on the higher end of that, of 5 to 7 hours of straight hurricane-force winds as the storm tracks across the area. So this is the latest track. We're going to be getting the new one here. This looks like we should get a new position update here in about 10 minutes, but we're going to get the new full advisory coming up at 11 o'clock. But that's the latest position on it, and that's the latest track for the 5 o'clock advisory. You can see it brings it as a Category 4 across Key West during the morning hours tomorrow, and it will approach the southwest Florida coast. This positioning on the National Hurricane Center track has it near the coast of Collier County, moving into Lee and Charlotte County. So if you were to look at this track and say this is what's going to happen, right now it looks like the center of the circulation will likely, or at least the eye, will try to cross over coastal sections of Collier into Lee County and then eventually into Charlotte County before pulling northward. So really anywhere in that area of the eye is going to see the extremely damaging winds, Category 3, Category 4 strength, as it pushes up towards the Tampa area. It's going to go right through Tampa, or at least just east of there, and then eventually move up towards areas west of Gainesville, looks like around Lake City, and then also getting into south ports of Georgia, potentially still as a Category 1 hurricane. So this is going to be a big-time event for not only southwest Florida, but for places well inland, maybe even as far north as Atlanta.